The nexus of politics and terror, new development number one. The Bush administration blows the cover of the private intelligence firm that found the last Osama bin Laden tape. Reneges on its promise to keep it quiet. Throws away another counter-terror asset. Lets Al-Qaeda know the intel firm's methods so it can get itself a public relations coup.
We did not ask to have that information just solely reviewed at the White House. We immediately turned it over to the National Center for Counterterrorism.
Good evening. If you had any remaining doubt that the Bush administration is more interested in issuing press releases boasting of defeating or thwarting terrorism than it is in actually defeating or thwarting terrorism, you can stop wondering. Our fifth story on the countdown tonight, the administration compromised a backdoor channel into Islamic websites so it could look like a bunch of big men on Fox News Channel. It revealed a route to an unreleased Osama bin Laden video. Of course, not long after Fox News found out, so did Al-Qaeda. Add the name Site Intelligence Group, SITE, to the long list of counter-terror assets sacrificed to Bush PR efforts. It's the Valerie Plame Wilson list, if you will. The founder of the small privately run intelligence firm telling the Washington Post that it gave two senior White House officials an advanced copy of the latest Osama bin Laden tape on the condition the administration would keep it secret until Al-Qaeda released the tape itself. The logic there impeccable, not to give Al-Qaeda a hint that any counter-terror group had a pipeline into one of its web homes. But within hours, someone in the government had leaked the video and the transcript to Fox News, apparently even telling Fox about the Site Intelligence Group's name. The sensitive data was then leaked to other news organizations, and that, says the Site Group, tipped off Al-Qaeda to the security breach that allowed Site to get the advanced copy of the tape in the first place. Thanks to that, the company adds, quote, techniques that took years to develop are now ineffective and worthless. At the White House this afternoon, Press Secretary Dana Perino confirmed the identity of the two senior officials to whom the Site Intelligence Group gave the bin Laden tape and said they immediately shared it with others in a good way.
So we did not ask to have that information just solely reviewed at the White House. We immediately turned it over to the National Center for Counterterrorism. That's what Fred Fielding and Joel Bagnall did, the two people who were aware of the link.
So if only Mr. Fielding, the White House counsel, and Mr. Bagnall, the deputy assistant to the president for Homeland Security, knew about the bin Laden tape, can Ms. Perino be absolutely certain that neither was the source of the leak? Well, why, yes, she can.
My question is, Fielding and Bagnall both knew about the information. You're positive they didn't leak it or take
Correct.
it further than the DNI's office? You've asked them
to NCTC. We asked
NCTC.
that the company contact NCTC directly and get that information to them directly.
Didn't Ms. Perino start out by saying that Fielding and Bagnall contacted the National Counterterrorism Center about the tape themselves? And if not the NCTC, did they happen to speak with anybody else?
I know that they asked for the company that called to contact NCTC directly. I don't know who else they might have called within our government, possibly the DNI's counsel's office, but I'm not positive. I can check.
My question is, you're saying they contacted these other places. The company asked them not to. So how do you know that
we asked
didn't come from Fielding or...
Because I've talked to Fred.
Okay, that's my question.
I've talked to Fred, and what we do is we ask that the call comes in from the company, and then Fred said, we'd like for the federal government to be able to look at this, thank you, but don't send it to me, send it directly to the NCTC, the National Center for Counterterrorism, which is what was taking place here.
To recap, in the space of 2 minutes, Ms. Perino's story, the White House not asking to have the bin Laden tape solely reviewed by the White House, implying that the White House did in fact review it. Ms. Perino further saying that Fred Fielding and Joel Bagnall turned the tape over to the National Counterterrorism Center themselves. That story morphing into Mr. Fielding asked the Site Institute to contact the NCTC directly. That second version of the story then morphing into, I'm going to have to get back to you on the specifics of who exactly Mr. Fielding spoke with or didn't. Time now for us to speak with our own Dana Milbank, national political reporter of the Washington Post. Dana, good evening.
Sorry about those Yankees, Keith.
No, it's all right. Thank you. Let me ask, this gets leaked first to Fox, then to others on September 7th. Anything around that date that might pass for a public relations motive to leak this?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. You beat O'Reilly in the ratings the night before. They needed to give Fox a boost. Well, look, we all know that Petraeus was making his big presentation to Congress the following Monday, and this would give him a little boost. On the other hand, this is news that was going to come out anyway. There's no sign of malice in the way there was in the Wilson-Plame affair. This seems to be more a case of ineptitude, although that's not terribly reassuring if the government is behaving in a reckless way with intelligence while at the same time scolding everybody else who's leaking it.
Yeah, let's do something that helps Al-Qaeda, courtesy of the government. But at least in terms of what happened today, at least Dana Perino cleared all this up. Did anybody throw her a rope there? I mean, you could see it flash across the eyes. I don't know what I'm talking about. Is she still treading water at this hour?
Well, it's a very dangerous position she's in. I think you could play certain tapes of Scott McClellan using almost the same words to exonerate Karl Rove and Scooter Libby. Perino was careful to say she knows that they weren't involved or weren't responsible because she had talked to them. So at least she's letting it hang on their own honesty here. But she's left herself in a pretty dangerous position and clearly has not answered all the questions.
At the White House this morning, Frances Townsend, who is assistant to the president for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism and appears on camera frequently everywhere, said the White House has not conducted an investigation of this information exchange, let's call it that, but she expected that the Director of National Intelligence, Admiral McConnell, would do so, and that, quote, it will be a typical leak investigation. First off, that's funny by itself, but do you think she meant the president's no one except Karl Rove who's involved in this leak can stay in my administration version of typical, or is it let's appoint a special prosecutor and get to the bottom of this typical?
Well, nobody's talking, I believe, even on the Democratic side about a special prosecutor just yet in this. But what's interesting is it would not be typical for the DNI, for the intelligence community, to do this investigation. Typically what's happened is they make a report to the Justice Department, which does this sort of investigation. So we should be watching to see if that is indeed the process it takes here.
It's interesting that this is going then to McConnell at the DNI, because he said today, and there was the implication that someone at the DNI's office may have, the attorney's office with the DNI might have been the leaker. And McConnell said in response, to make the accusation that the intelligence community leaked this to the media is totally false. It wouldn't be the first time, though, that the White House has tried to pin something bad on the intelligence community. Does it put to rest the idea that they learned from the mistakes of WMD in Iraq and other stories?
Yes, they've got yellow cake uranium all over their face from that one. I think there is some truth to that. In the previous case, George Tenet took the fall for the administration and didn't come out very well in the process. So you see them fighting back now, and that's very different. Dana
Milbank of MSNBC and the Washington Post. As always, great thanks, Dana.
Thanks, Keith.
For more on the impact on the counterterrorism community of the administration's leak of the means by which this side had a head start on Osama bin Laden's latest tape, let's turn to MSNBC terrorism analyst Evan Coleman, the founder of GlobalTerrorAlert.com. Evan, thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's start with this breach here. Did somebody just give away the kind of advantage, whether it's huge or it's little, but the kind of advantage that the rest of the counterterrorism world spends, 18 hours a day trying to gain?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very unusual edge what they had gotten. About over the last approximate year, there have been a number of us that have managed to snake various loopholes into Al-Qaeda's distribution system. And we've been able to get copies, advanced copies of Al-Qaeda videos before they're coming out. Now, it happens to different degrees, and some people use different loopholes. It happened that the loophole that the Site Institute had secured for itself was remarkably ingenious, and it was quite unusual, and I would be shocked to hear that anyone in the U.S. government has an equivalent on their own without the assistance of Site. Now, that being said, I want to caution people, we're not talking about, the next 9/11 happening tomorrow because of this intelligence leak. What we have is a more complicated situation, and that is that you have the U.S. government, which relies on private contractors like the Site Institute, like myself, to do this kind of work for them. They rely on us to provide this kind of information, and then they go ahead and somebody in the U.S. government obviously burned the Site Institute. Now, what is the ultimate impact? Well, if the Site Institute finds a bin Laden video tomorrow ahead of the U.S. government, you better bet they're not going to turn to the U.S. government, or they're certainly not going to turn to the White House. And as far as what the White House did in this case, I got to tell you, I mean, I was getting requests for this video from U.S. law enforcement on that day. So apparently, whoever was at the White House or whoever was at the DNI who was supposed to be in charge of getting this video out was not doing a very good job, because it didn't get out to U.S. law enforcement immediately. So, I mean, that, you know, this is just the reality of things, is that Fox News had this transcript and had this video in some cases before FBI agents did.
And the response, of course, as we suggested, it gets out. Guess what? Even terrorist organizations can figure out that their security or something has gone wrong in terms of this, and they shut down many of these prominent Islamic websites. Shut down on the afternoon of September 7th. Is that cause and effect? Did we just lose some sort of, you know, head start? And again, as you said, it's not life and death tomorrow, but this is all, as in the old spy days. This is all 365 days of work a year, and you just lost, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 days, whatever it means, right?
Yeah, these loopholes are incredibly difficult to secure. When they disappear, it really is, you know, it's a sad thing to see them go. I don't know that permanent damage was done, but any damage really is regrettable, because these kind of opportunities are few and far between. It takes ingenuity to find these loopholes. It's not so easy. And so to squander them for any reason except life or death is something that should not be done. It's irrelevant whether the intelligence was collected by site or by U.S. government agency. You don't squander intelligence needlessly. And here you really put their intelligence gathering methods, and I should say that the intelligence gathering methods of many private intelligence research institutions at risk by doing this, and thus consequently U.S. government intelligence. I mean, again, there's a reason why the Site Institute exists. There's a reason why people like me are out there. It's because the U.S. government has to hire people to do this. They can't do it on their own. And
this is, by the way, a mirror image of every argument they have ever made for classifying anything as it relates to Gitmo, as it relates to black sites, as it relates to web, as it relates to telecommunications. It's just a mirror image of this, which leads me to my final question. When something like this happens, and this is not the first time, do you sit there in your office and say, I'm not sure this administration wants to do that actual grinded out work of counterterrorism. It just wants to see nice headlines about what a great job it's doing?
Well, there does seem to be an unfortunate tendency that, you know, when there are victories in the war on terrorism, or where there's a speech by Osama bin Laden, or something really, you know, that generates fear, there seems to be a tendency to focus on that rather than focusing on the kind of more nuanced, here is Al-Qaeda, here is what they're planning, here is what they've said. You know, we don't want to resort to hysteria, and the last thing that we want to do is spread Al-Qaeda's message the way that they want us to, which is spreading a transcript to the American people. There was nothing in this bin Laden video that had any value that Americans needed to read it then and there. So to help distribute it to Americans, you're just helping Al-Qaeda in their mission.
Evan Coleman, MSNBC terrorism analyst and proprietor of his own great firm. Great thanks, Evan.
Thank you very much.